What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here today. It is Tuesday, October 8th, 2019, and our travails are continuing. It turned out I did have to put a new battery in the car, which I did this morning here. But we're kind of through the worst of moving in. Claire's office is all put together, so she's happy. We're going to put my office together over the weekend because Monday is when the cable people show up to do whatever the cable people are going to do, and we've got most of the furniture located. We're basically down to the decor. You know, I've got this, this war mask from Papua New Guinea. Where are we going to put it so that it doesn't scare the children when they come on in here? Anyway, I'm going to go off here on a little bit of a rant, and it's well deserved because early today I was watching on Fox News, and apparently I am not the only person noticing that the latest iOS version 1.2 has got some serious problems. And Fox News devoted actually quite a bit of airtime to this. And they're talking about people who are noticing that their phones are much hotter than they used to be. They're taking a much longer time to charge. At one point, Fox News suggested the idea that Apple is trying to sell their own version of the chargers so that you'll spend more money and get the faster charge on it. But for me, the big issue is how hot these are getting, because that shortens the lifespan. And as near as I can tell, there's been virtually no real functional improvement whatsoever. I mean, they went from a light background to a dark background. And maybe that's the cause of the heat problem. I really don't know. But they moved everything around. And you've got a lot more emojis that are out there. But in terms of a simple, elegant, easy-to-use appliance, it's just not there anymore. And I think what's going on with Apple, and not to mention Microsoft and not to mention Boeing, is that all of the legacy engineers, us old white guys who know how it all works, we got to let go. And they brought in a bunch of H-1B student visas and who are willing to work cheap. And they say, you make this look better. And that's what they're trying to do. And they're failing miserably. And it isn't just Apple. Windows has yet another patch out. And apparently there's a problem with the start menu. This is Windows 10, and I'm seeing it on this machine here, this physical machine I'm doing the show. This is a Windows 10 machine, which I should never have allowed Microsoft to patch. The start menu hangs up. The search function on start menu quits. There are boot issues. In fact, I can't shut this machine down. I'll go to the little power icon and say shut off, and it basically does a restart. I have to push and hold down the power button to get this thing to shut off. And apparently the print spooler is now dead. I mean, talk about not being the greatest nation on earth anymore. It's really very frustrating to see this stuff work this bad here. All right, so let's get into other issues. According to Russia Today, both Clinton and Romney are looking at joining the 2020 race. And Russia Today is asking, has politics gone the way of Hollywood? Because both Hillary Clinton and Mitt Romney are two-time losers. And they're being rejected by the voting public. Why won't they go away? And Joe Biden himself is also a two-time loser, convinced that the third time is a charm. And it is. It's no longer about the politics. It's no longer about actually trying to get the country to run. It's a celebrity contest. It's whoever dresses the best. It's whoever looks the most handsome. That's who we're going. That's why we have a reality TV star as president now. Just amazing here. All righty, story that came on out from RestoreTheAmericanGlory.com. Is Mitt Romney planning to jump into the 2020 presidential race? I think he's going to get talked into it. And I think the reason is to take votes away from Donald Trump. Right now, the only way that Hillary Clinton has a chance of winning the presidency next year, she needs an opponent she can roll over. And Mitt Romney is certainly one of them. And of course, the other one is Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas. And you would think after that huge, huge embarrassment that she already had over claiming this Native American heritage, that she would, have maybe learned a lesson about being a little bit more honest with the voting public. Because, she's been out there campaigning, talking about being fired from a temp teaching job for being visibly pregnant, and how the principal of the school said, well, good luck here, but we're going to hire somebody else for the job because you're simply too pregnant. Now, back when this all happened, first of all, the evidence is it didn't really happen that way. That Elizabeth Warren herself just made the decision that she was going to go home, have the baby, raise the baby. And so this whole story about being fired for being visibly pregnant, it's already unraveled. It's falling apart. This lady doesn't know how to tell the truth. I want you to just imagine for a second, just in your head, that through some amazing miracle, Pocahontas gets elected President of the United States of America. Can you imagine a nation of 300 million people laughing their heads off when they play Hail to the Chief? I think it's funny. Meanwhile, the Democrats are over there still pushing for impeachment. They're now insisting that they have a second whistleblower who is now being exposed as actually being the inspiration for the first whistleblower. The timelines aren't working out here. And here's the Democrats' problem. How are they going to go about trying to pass articles of impeachment in the House without getting their own hands dirty because of everything that they've been doing? And the answer is they can't. They absolutely cannot. Now, Trump has basically dropped the hammer, and he's saying that he will not cooperate with the lying, dishonest Democrats. There'll be zero cooperation until they take an official vote on impeachment. Note he's not saying an impeachment inquiry because there is no such thing in the Constitution of the United States of America. He said he wants them to go ahead and vote. If you've got grounds to impeach, vote to impeach. And if you don't have grounds to impeach, then shut the heck up. I'm sure Donald Trump is sick and tired of hearing about this. I know I'm sick and tired of hearing about this. I'm sick and tired of all these whiners out there saying, we've got to impeach him. Okay, so Donald Trump called the president of Ukraine in compliance with a treaty from 1999 mandating cooperation on criminal investigation. And maybe it was a little tacky and tasteless and badly timed, but it doesn't rise to the level of an impeachable offense. Democrats are just trying to turn this into some kind of a horrible, horrible situation, and they're failing miserably. Meanwhile, Intelligence Community Inspector General Michael Atkinson is having a hard time trying to explain why there was an 18-day delay between Trump's Ukraine call and the official whistleblower complaint. Well, we know that the whistleblower originally went to Congress. That's not the way it's supposed to work. They're supposed to go to the IG and file a report and say, here's what's going on. But 18 days, they were over hanging out with the Democrats in the House of Representatives. The IG doesn't really have a good reason for that. Well, I don't know, they were having a Scrabble tournament or something over there, and the time just got away from them here. Now, here's where it gets really kind of interesting. As you know, this whistleblower is being hidden. And that's a very unusual thing, because when you have a whistleblower, normally they're identified. Edward Snowden, Chelsea Manning, Monica Lewinsky, Julian Assange, and on and on and on. This one is being kept top secret, and now the Democrats are trying to sell this idea that they want to interview this whistleblower from a remote location and electronically change his appearance and his voice. Well, I'm sorry, I wouldn't trust that at all. You have no idea who's out there on the other end of that camera and that microphone. Could be Nancy Pelosi for all we know. I'm not buying that one. I am absolutely not buying that one. That is just ridiculous, utterly, utterly ridiculous here. All right, we had a caller who called in about this one yesterday, and I'm going to mention it again because I think it illustrates the kind of people who these days seem to be drawn to politics. So Representative Ilhan Omar has filed for divorce from her husband a little more than 1 month after a Washington, D.C. divorce filing alleging she was having an affair with Tim Minette, a political consultant working for her campaign. Can any of these people keep their flies zipped? And I have an opinion about that, a little serious opinion about that. If you cannot remain faithful to your spouse, then you are untrustworthy. Period. End of discussion. And I know throughout America's political history that there have been a lot of politicians who dipped their wicks. There were a lot who basically said, no, we're not going to do this. Oh, there goes Lucy. Yep, our official show mascot is Lucy here. All right, so let's talk about what's going on over there with the Kurds, because I got to be honest, I'm having a hard time figuring this one out. And I'm not sure exactly what Trump is trying to do here. It seems like he's all over the place. He's getting all kinds of reactions from other countries that don't really seem to make a lot of sense. But one thing that we know for sure, history is repeating itself with this latest U.S. betrayal of the Kurds. And I'm concerned about that. I mentioned this yesterday because we're at a point right now where our government needs to have the trust of other nations. There was this movie called The Green Zone, and it was about the phony weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And there was this line at the very end of it where this guy who spent the entire movie trying to find the nuclear weapons, and he couldn't. And then he finally realizes they were lied to the whole time. He says, what happens the next time we need somebody to believe us? And we're at that point right now. What happens when we need somebody to believe what this government is saying? What's going to happen? So anyway, Lindsey Graham, Nikki Haley, and Meghan McCain are outraged. They're outraged after President Trump removes the troops from northern Syria. Well, you know, Lindsey, Nikki, and Meghan, here are your rifles, and here are your parachutes, and here are your Dayglow orange jumpsuits, and go have some fun if you're really that upset about it. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is out there saying that Trump's decision to withdraw the troops from Syria is deeply disturbing. And while we're not exactly sure what is going on here, One thing is very obvious. It is a a divisive issue where you've got people on one side saying, we should have gotten out of here a long time ago. In fact, we never should have gotten in there in the first place. That would be my opinion. We had no reason to go into Syria. Assad wasn't gassing his people. Then you have the people on the other side who are saying, no, we need to go back on in there. So I'm going to throw a theory at you. And it's just a theory. I emphasize it's just a theory. I don't know, but it's a possibility. And that is that, as you know, Trump campaigned on getting us out of some of these wars. And he's been certainly going around TV over the last several days saying, you know, I promised I was going to bring our troops home as quickly as I can. Of course, it's been 2.5 years. And so I'm going to, but he's under tremendous pressure from the Pentagon, from Lindsey Graham, from Nancy Pelosi to find a way to keep Syria going. So if he can stir up trouble between the Kurds and Erdogan, then he can turn around next week and say, golly gee whiz, I'm really sorry. I really did mean to bring our kids home, but boy, we got to protect those Kurds. Again, just a theory. I'm trying to stimulate some thought here because this is such a confusing issue. I really don't know. I haven't been able to figure this one out. So apparently Trump actually invited Erdogan to the White House. They've already had a phone call where Erdogan told Trump, work with us in Syria or get out of the way, which sounds pretty definitive there. And apparently Trump surprised even Turk officials with his public support for Ankara's assault on the Kurdish-held territory. So again, maybe this is his way of getting back in there. Okay, we got a caller on the line. Stuart in Florida. Aloha, Stuart. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Okay, how you doing, Mike? Just a quick comment. You know, the thing is that, you know, the Democrats would now get the Republicans that they need for an impeachment because, you know, the neocons, they want to stay there. And so they have an issue that they can unite to get rid of Trump. So
well, see, Trump, I hope, would be smart enough to realize that was going to happen, or at least Trump's advisors would be smart enough to say, look, if you alienate the neocons, they're going to switch over to the other side with the Democrats, and they're going to vote for impeachment. But again, it comes down to this issue. They don't really have an impeachable offense to work with.
Well, you know, it's a political act, I think. You know, I mean, if they agree on something that, you know, maybe he's deranged or he's, you know, what is that, the 25th Amendment or something?
That would be the 25th. That would be the 25th Amendment. They'd have to agree on that. But that takes the entire cabinet and the vice president to activate the 25th Amendment.
Right. Oh, yeah. Well, it could be because his cabinet is mostly neocons. So, you know, you never know. One other thing I wanted to mention about what you were discussing yesterday with the Kurds is, you know, I agree with you. The big negative is that, you know, our reputation and dependability is you know, is in the crapper. And, you know, it's one thing if you're not there, but we're already there. The way to do it would have been to at least try to negotiate a mutually beneficial, you know, agreement, you know, so you're not screwing your former ally, not just pull out. I mean, that's totally crazy. I mean, you know, it's totally irresponsible.
I agree. The problem is Assad, you know, the Kurds settled on some of the most valuable land in Syria and Iraq, for that matter, and Iran, for that matter. They don't want to give it up. And these countries that, you know, that at least for right now hold title to those lands, they don't want to give it up either. And so the only way this is going to work is if you're going to find someplace else for the Kurds to move to that consists of land that nobody else actually wants.
Yeah. Well, one other quick comment is, I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Okay, I got to put you on hold.
Girl.
I got to put you on hold because we got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. And And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking with Stuart down there in Florida. And Stuart, again, the idea of angering enough neocons to support impeachment, Trump has to know that that's a possibility. His advisors have got to say it's a possibility. And you're right. They could actually come down on and try and invoke the 25th Amendment. But I don't think Trump wants to leave the job just yet. Otherwise, he'd pull a Richard Nixon and say, you know, look, ladies and gentlemen, you're on your own. Thank you and good night. And that would be it. So something else is going on here. And I really do think the objective is to sort of mix things up between Syria, Turkey, Kurdistan, and who knows what all else.
Yeah. Well, one quick point I just wanted to mention is, you know, Syrian girl, if you know who she is, I probably do. She
Yes.
mentioned something very interesting, that the Kurds never really had their own territory. They were nomads until after the First World War.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. So something else to complicate the situation.
Well, I mean, there were a lot of, I mean, look at most of the Middle East and Arabia. They were nomads until after the fall of the Ottoman Empire. So, I mean, there's nothing really significant about that. They want their own country, just like Palestine does. And, you know, just like Palestine, there are people standing in the way saying, no, God gave it to us and you have to go away.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Mike. I appreciate the time.
All right, thanks an awful lot here. We're going to let you go here. And by the way, the phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, ready to answer the phone, put you on the air with your comments, questions, and opinions. And as a matter of fact, Tony in Puerto Rico is already on the line. So, Tony, what do you think is going on?
Yeah. I have a couple of quick comments. I don't understand Trump. First, he says he can destroy Turkey's economy very easily. Then he comes back and says they're our most important trading partner there. Okay, I don't understand that. And my second question is, why is Hillary putting her 2 cents in? Is she thinking about jumping in the presidential race?
Oh, there's no question about it. I mean, according to the Federal Election Commission, she's got an active campaign and she's already fundraising. She hasn't raised a lot of money, but she's definitely out there begging. Now, as far as the bombing going on, yeah, that's taking place over there. Turkish warplanes are striking Kurdish targets, and so the killing has already started.
So who's going to fill the void? You think Russia might fill the void?
It's hard to say. I don't think Russia really wants to take on the United States at this particular point. I'll tell you who I think a likely candidate is going to be Israel. I think Israel is going to try and move into northern Syria and that wealthy part of Kurdistan. Because Israel has nuclear weapons, Syria is not going to be able to do much of anything about it.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mike.
All right. Thanks an awful lot here. We're going to let you go. So as I was mentioning before, the blood is already being shed. Sadly, Turkish warplanes strike Kurdish targets in northern Syria. Apparently, talk about war making for strange bedfellows, the Syrian Democratic Forces, who used to be this U.S.-backed opposition group to Assad, are now talking partnership with Assad to fight off the Turkish invasion. So they're talking about switching sides the way Italy did during World War II. And this is what I was talking about yesterday. This thing could spin completely out of control. So you've had the SDF has been fighting Assad on behalf of the United States of America. Turkey has ripped off a strip of Syria, and all of a sudden the SDF is saying, you know, we don't really like that, and we're going to join with Assad. Okay? Meanwhile, the Syrian Kurds are hinting at possible talks with Damascus amid the U.S. troop withdrawal. So there may not even be that much of a war. This situation is it's fluid, it is dynamic. But, in the end, given the relative armaments involved and everything, this may be the best option for the Syrian Kurds, is to go to Damascus and say, look, the U.S. is gone. They're not causing us any more problems. We would like to just settle down and have a decent life. And maybe we don't need to have a flag of Kurdistan as long as, we could be a semi-autonomous region. But it's all very much in flux. Now, the other big story that's out here, and we got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And we're getting mixed messages coming from the White House because Donald Trump apparently has launched this harsh attack on Turkey, threatening to destroy its economy if Ankara takes a planned military strike in Syria too far, even though Trump himself has opened the door for a Turkish attack. So is he making these decisions with a dartboard at this particular point? And again, it's Trump getting on out there, playing heavy with the sanctions and the tariffs and, just bullying everybody, weaponizing the U.S. dollar and bullying everybody with it. Okay, let's take a phone call now from Jim in Northwest Indiana. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Michael. Welcome to Indiana.
Thank you.
I hope you're enjoying it. I'm a lifelong Hoosier, and maybe last week, and I'm going to talk about Syria, but last week you had mentioned about the difficulty finding supplements, and I've been a long time taker of supplements, and in Indiana there's some very good resources, and I don't know if I could say that on the air or not.
Yeah, you can. I don't remember talking about the supplements because, we went up to CVS and we didn't have a problem with that.
Yeah, it was like, I think turmeric, you were going on the internet and you think that they were, not letting you being able to order things on the internet, the supplements you might want because of the, the medical and industrial complex.
Well, there's a lot of that going on here, but fortunately you can still get turmeric, and Claire definitely does order that. So let's talk about Syria.
There's good places where you can get. All right. Anyway, I wanted to call a long time about this. All these politicians and the neocons and Nancy Pelosi all get money from the military contractors. So they want to keep the wars going.
Yes.
And so when Trump talks about let's pull out, oh no, where's my campaign funders? And how am I going to get rich or richer? Because it should be publicized how much money these politicians get from military contractors.
It should be, and it's actually supposed to be part of the FEC records. Some of them get an awful lot here. Now, you may have stumbled on something here. Maybe Trump wants to pander to the voters by getting out of Syria, but he wants to replace it with a newer, larger, more expensive war.
Yeah, that's a great theory.
Yeah,
and it just keeps that and our budget is suffering, and people are homeless here, and our infrastructure's bad, and they're throwing all our budget into war making.
Yes,
and it's just crazy. We brought our troops, and our troops were mostly here. We could protect our borders. We could protect our cities and save a lot of money for the American people.
Well, saving the money for the American people isn't the objective. It's plundering the American people and spending the money on weapons and having our soldiers here at home protecting our borders. There's not a big markup on that, to be brutally honest about that. And this is about going on out and literally, it's a slow motion world war is what's going on here. It's not going as fast as World War I or World War II, but it's definitely proceeding along country after country after country after country. And I think that's really what they were hoping, is they were going to sneak a world war past us without us noticing.
We've been plundering a country's resources for decades. And we wonder why we have an immigration problem, because we went to those. And we wonder why we have an immigration problem, because we've been plundering their resources. There's no money there. They're broke. They can't eat. They can't. And so where are they going to come? They're going to come to America. But it's our fault. We created that mess. And now
it's the government's fault.
Have to pay twice. Yeah, the government, U.S. taxpayers have to pay for the wars, and now we have to pay to support the immigrants.
Yes.
So it's a double tax. Anyway, that's all I had to say, and I wish you well, and I hope things go well.
Well, things are going well.
Great job.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that, and I think we're through the worst of the move here. Although, as long as we're talking about immigrants and refugees here, I do have a little bit of a gripe, and that is that at the other end, on Oahu, we were sent some movers by a local company, and we kept saying, "Do you speak English?" And they said, "Oh, yes, we speak English just fine." And yet we get here and we find that things are missing, things are broken. They shipped stuff that we didn't want shipped. And, I understand everybody's talking about open borders and, refugees having a right to go anywhere in the world. But I really do think that we need to go back to speaking the same language fluently, because I'm sure that's probably also another reason why we're seeing all these problems with the Apple and Windows operating systems. Because I know how hard it is to have a multilingual crew, and I know that because when I lived in Hawaii, I worked on a movie called Final Fantasy, and it was a joint American-Japanese crew. And, I studied as hard as I could to learn Japanese, and it was very difficult to communicate with each other, and a lot of very expensive mistakes got made.
I agree. I totally agree with you.
It's a problem. All right, well, thank you very much for the phone call, Jim. We're going to let you go here. Meanwhile, Pat Robertson is out there warning that Trump might lose the mandate of heaven if he abandons the Kurds in Syria. Pat Robertson is out there playing the God gambit here. All righty, let's see now. Over in Iraq, things are going they're not going well. Protests have engulfed cities across Iraq. Armed men have raided the offices of several Iraqi and Arab news channels, forcing them off air in an apparent attempt to restrict coverage of the demonstrations and the deadly crackdown. Multiple journalists who witnessed the raids on Saturday have said the Iran-backed Saraya al-Khorasani Brigade's militia was responsible. So apparently we have these, at least they're claiming that the Iranians are behind this shutdown of the media in Iraq. I'm not sure if I believe that. We've seen too many of these deceptions before here. But that's what they're making the claim. Hong Kong, still tremendous amounts of violence going on over there. They had a long weekend of violence. It's still going on. The government is considering totally shutting down the internet, shutting down bank accounts and assets without recourse to basically just paralyze everybody. In fact, they're talking about a curfew, 24-hour curfew. You stay in your home. You do not come out. All right, we have a caller on the line, Chance in West Virginia. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mike. Didn't Pat Robertson, correct me if I'm wrong, a while back, wasn't he for bombing one nation? He was all gung-ho for going to war with a nation.
Yeah.
Yes, and now Talk about a hypocrite, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, and your comments about Trump were right on target. Now, whether you like him or not, I'm a little bit disappointed in him, but still, this is getting ridiculous what they're doing to him.
Well, I know that he is under a lot of opposition from people around him, but part of the reason that that's effective is because of his own personal weaknesses. You know, he's not a strong leader. He's easily manipulated. He's subjected to flattery. And, you know, if you're going to be the chief executive of the land, you've got to act like one. And,
Exactly.
you know, like I said, if I had a Forge out here, I'd start making him some presidential brass knuckles.
Exactly, I hear you. I'm wondering about this. What is your opinion on this bringing up the Marine region?
Well, what I'm hearing, there's two sides to the story, and one is that there is some big event that's getting ready to happen for which the Marines are being prepped. And the other side of the story, we had a caller who called on in who's part of the Marine Corps command structure who said that actually this is just kind of business as usual. Every once in a while they'll reorganize. So at this point, I'll have to say we don't really know. You know, they could be getting ready to do something really dramatic and they don't want anybody to know about it. Or it could, in fact, it could, in fact, just be some Marine Corps officer, you know, just, you know, churning their way toward retirement.
Well, I don't recall this ever being mentioned in any other presidential tenure. This is the first time I've heard this. It sounds like a military preparation. I mean, or something. Okay, Mike, that's all. I just wanted your opinion on those two things. Thank you. Now, have a nice day.
All right, thanks an awful lot. Yeah, I'm not sure about that second one. Like I said, there's two sides to the argument here. I know we'd all like to hope that the Marines are going to show up and start arresting some of these people who have been behaving very, very badly within the government. But again, that would require Trump himself to show a great deal of personal strength. And I'm not seeing it. I'm really not seeing. He's a great, you know, live TV actor, a great reality show actor, and he's a very pleasant gentleman and everything. But I don't see him as having the strength of moral character to pull something like this off. Anyway, getting on back to Hong Kong here. Apparently, China is blasting France and the EU for hypocrisy after they call for restraint in Hong Kong. In other words, France and the EU are telling the people on Hong Kong, got to back off. You know, just let these people have their little protest here. They're very upset. They're very unhappy. And of course, China's out there saying, well, look at the way you're treating the yellow vests. So how is it you're going to come on down here and tell us how we behave with our protesters here? Okay, little story here. This came from Gilad Otzman, and it's kind of interesting. We've talked about this before. Yesterday, Haaretz published a tedious 5,000-word rant titled "The Fake Nazi Death Camp, Wikipedia's Longest Hoax Exposed." And before you get all excited and say, see, it didn't happen, it didn't happen, it didn't happen. No, the argument here is that Israelis and Jews are very upset that other races of people have their own gas chamber narratives, such as the Poles and the Gypsies and the gays and the mentally retarded. And they want exclusivity. They want to say, you know, we were the only ones who were being treated this way. And, you know, the Poles weren't gassed by the Nazis. The gays weren't gassed by the Nazis. It's only us, it's only us, it's only us, send money. And, you know, Gilad's hit it right on the head. The Nazis were being jerks to everybody. So apparently a veteran Israeli activist has accused doctors of enabling and assisting in the torture of Palestinian prisoners. So writing in Plus 972 magazine, Dr. Rukma Martin, who founded Physicians for Human Rights, declared how troubled she has been by the way that Israeli doctors cooperate with and enable Israel's torture industry. Now, I don't know how things are over in Israel, but I do know that at least here in the United States of America, there are certain oaths doctors take, such as the Hippocratic Oath, which is, among other things, first of all, do no harm. But we do know that, doctors can be convinced to engage in this kind of research, biological warfare, toxins. I mean, look at all the people over there at Fort Detrick. They're not exactly curing the common cold over there. So, alrighty, another story coming on out. Israel's District Planning and Building Committee is considering a plan submitted by the Bedouin Settlement Authority in the Negev, which aims to build camps as preparation for the displacement of 36,000 Arab citizens. Now, you've probably already been paying attention to this story, that every once in a while, the Israelis will go on into the Bedouin settlements and they'll bulldoze them flat. And the Bedouins are saying, look, we got to have someplace to live, which makes perfect sense. And they've been living in this area for hundreds of years. Before the creation of Israel, they lived there. And now they're just trying to figure out a way how it's going to work. Okay, over in Germany, in an area of forest near Zemmer, apparently a United States F-16 fighter has crashed. We're being told that the pilot ejected safely from the aircraft in time. The plane came down in an uninhabited area, according to German broadcaster SWR. Police received emergency calls. They've closed off a wide area surrounding the crash site. But apparently it did come on down. It fall down, go boom. All righty. Let's see. I'm getting a text message here that I should look at because it's interesting stuff. Take a look here. Okay, let the backpedaling begin. John Brennan admits he may have been fooled by bad info on Trump's Russia contacts. Okay, so they're already backpedaling on this thing. We'll be right back after these few words. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And as we were reporting just before we went to the commercial break here, John Brennan apparently has admitted before Congress that he may have been misled by information regarding Trump's connections to Russia. In other words, Ukraine-gate just blew up in the Democrats' faces. So let's see, that was Russia-gate that blew up, Spy-gate blew up, now Ukraine-gate. There was another third one in there. I can't even remember the name of it. There have been so many. I mean, the Democrats are self-destructing. They really, really are right now. And again, as I've said before, we're in a war of lies. Each side is lying about the other in the hope that if they can get the most people to believe them, they will somehow win. That's not how the system is supposed to work. You're supposed to go on out and construct a reasonable argument on how to run the country to the American people. And the American people will sit there and say, well, you know, this makes sense, and this other part just seems like completely and utter nonsense, and I'm going to vote that way. All right, let's talk about the economic news here because things are getting kind of rather interesting. Over in South Carolina, there's a car dealership, and they are desperate enough to sell cars where they will give car buyers an American flag, a Bible, and an AR-15. sounds kind of cool. Now, I've already got the American flag and the Bible, and unfortunately, I was never able to finish the AR-15. But that'll get some people onto that lot, I think. That'll get some people there. All right, Uber. We all talk about Uber and the problems they've had here, but apparently they've reached the point where they're finally having to admit the business model isn't working. And now they're just trying all kinds of panic moves to see if they can find something that will turn their fortunes around. In other words, it's the spaghetti approach. They're throwing everything they can think of at the wall to see what sticks. And there have been so many problems with the Uber drivers attacking passengers or the passengers attacking the Uber drivers. It sounded like a great concept when it started, but they really didn't think it all the way through. All right, let's talk about Dick's Sporting Goods. And I have to tell you, my gut is telling me they're not going to be around for much longer. Because Dick's Sporting Goods CEO, as you know, when this whole gun grab, guns are bad, Dick's Sporting Goods stopped selling guns. They lost a huge amount of money. Their investors got very nervous. Now he's bragging about turning $5 million worth of rifles into scrap metal. I don't think it's going to be around for much longer. We got to take a break for station identification, and we will be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. Hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, ready to answer the phone, put you on the air with your comments and questions. There was another story that was on TV today, and it's been all over the net here, and it has to do with Ellen DeGeneres, who I don't know if this is just another PR stunt to keep her name out there, because it's been a while since she's done anything. I think Finding Dory was the last thing that I'm aware of that she did here. But apparently she was sitting next to George W. Bush at an NFL game, and social media was just outraged. How dare you sit next to George W. Bush? Who cares? I'm sorry, who cares? I think it was Ellen was trying to get some media attention, and everybody fell for it here. All righty, let's talk a little bit about the weather, because we're getting in there. It's actually rather cold today. It's a beautiful day. The trees are starting to turn. And over in Japan, they have what they're calling Super Typhoon Hagibis. This went from a tropical storm to a Category 5 hurricane in just 24 hours. This is a new record for the fastest intensification of a storm. The bad news is it's aimed at Fukushima, Japan. And as you're probably already aware, over at Fukushima, Japan, they have run out of place to store all that radioactive water. You got these big plastic bins and barrels and everything, and they're already talking about just voluntarily dumping it into the ocean. This storm could just drop it all in all at once. They could even wake up Godzilla. All that radiation here. All righty, story coming on out of krdo.com. The first snow and a 40-degree drop in temps expected late this week. It's going to be getting very, very cold indeed. In fact, there's another story over here from Investment Watch blog. The frost apocalypse is set to sweep across the United States, and they're saying this is probably going to be the end of the growing season. And that's going to be a problem because, as you know, the early growing season was destroyed by all the flooding, and now we're being told there will be no bumper crops. So You know, folks, be very careful with your food. Don't waste any of it. Store as much as you can, because it's probably there are going to be shortages this winter. That's just the way it's going to be here. You know, if you've got fruit trees or vegetables, learn how to can. Canning, when I was a kid, canning was something we all did. Go down, we get the glass jars and the lids and you know, we just can everything. Put it down in the cellar. People have forgotten how to use these survival skills here. Let's see. Apparently, Hillary Clinton is now polling in 3rd place. Are you kidding me? Hillary rockets into 3rd place on predicted as rumors swirl over 2020 run. Oh, come on. So all she has to do is knock off Warren, who's self-destructing, and Biden, who's got his medical issues. Basically, Hillary's doing the same thing that Richard Nixon did in his 2nd term. He is engineering his competition to be easy to beat. There's never a good asteroid around when you need one. That's my complaint here. And by the way, is anybody aware of how Hillary's health is? I mean, we're hearing all about Joe Biden's, you know, his stents and his arteries, and we're hearing about Alex Trebek. What about Hillary? Remember when they had to grab her and throw her in the back of that van? Everyone's worried about whether Joe Biden is healthy enough to actually be the president. We should be checking out Hillary Clinton. Anyway. All right, so up in northern Idaho and the Pacific Northwest, as you know, they got socked with an historic storm up in the North Country. They're still digging out. It's a huge, huge mess up there. So don't forget that human-caused global warming. Apparently, they're expecting between 5 and 10 centimeters of snow in parts of British Columbia overnight. And I mention all of this not just because I think human-caused global warming was a lot of nonsense, but because of this story that came out of the Telegraph in Great Britain, saying that basically looking, you know, from 30 years in the future, looking back, we will all be shocked at how easily we were bamboozled by thinking the world was cooking up because the data was being fudged. They fiddled with the temperature data. And you already know this. We know it from Hadley Climate Research Unit at the University of East Anglia. We know it from the data altering they were doing at NASA, which stands for Never a Straight Answer. Same thing with NOAA. We're just being lied to. Okay, let's take a phone call here from Dustin in New Jersey. Aloha, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Mike, I'm going to bring up the whole we're going to lose credibility again with pulling out of Syria. And I say, again, we have no credibility because our great leaders got us into this situation. So we lost credibility with them creating this mess in the first place because they're corrupted. So there's no good or bad way to leave. It's like you leave the same way you came in, right? Got it. Well, that's it. You know, I mean,
well, again, we need to think about an exit strategy because we don't want to leave, you know, more damage to our country than when we went on in, because that counts as a loss. What we need is a graceful exit. And you know, I was hoping they were going to do that up in Afghanistan, where they were going to sit down at the table and say, well, look, we agree, we've had our little war, we're all friends again, and let's go back, you know, to being friends. But then, of course, Bolton kind of killed that whole idea.
Mike, but we're an empire. This is a scam. So wherever the U.S. goes to bring so-called democracy and we bring troops in, you'll never leave. Mm-hmm. You'll just plant the flag, and we can't leave because we'll lose credibility. It's a scam. You know what I mean?
Well, not
like,
always. I mean,
we're in Iraq still.
Are we in Vietnam?
Probably special forces. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm sure the CIA is still in Vietnam getting all that heroin over here, but you know, eventually we do leave some of these places.
But that's a different era and a different time. This is a totally different ball game now. You know, and Mike, by the way, on YouTube, if you watch YouTube, I noticed a lot of commercials popping up with democracy. Go with the people of Hong Kong. Did you see those commercials?
I did, and somebody just sent me a message here where apparently the Chinese army is now ready to step in against the Hong Kong rioters. This is going to get ugly, and apparently, let's look at the stock market here. I need more monitors. I need more equipment here.
I think it was down 190. Well, the last time I looked, it was down 90.
The Dow is down 313 right now.
So it's so that's it.
Yeah, that's not good.
Wow,
not good. Not good.
No, and which leads. Do I still have time? Which leads me to.
Yeah, you got plenty of time.
Okay. Well, you had a caller yesterday who brought up, which I was going to bring up. I decided to bring it up today because he brought it up about the, like up until November 4th to the 10th, they're going to keep pumping liquidity into the banks, which, look, man, there's a problem going on here. You just don't do this. There's a shortage of money going on with the banks, you know, and if you have to extend it till November 4th, there's a serious issue going on here. You know, I mean,
it's not a problem of a shortage of money because they've got the printing presses and the ink. The problem is that if you overprint too much of that money, people stop trusting it. And we get back to that whole issue again of who trusts the U.S. government. And frankly, trust in the U.S. economy began to deteriorate all the way back at the Nixon shock. And if they just start cranking out, I mean, we're like, what, $22 trillion in debt now, all of it just made up out of thin air.
Credibility in the Federal Reserve also, right? Credibility around the world as an empire, credibility in the dollar as the reserve currency, right? So, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. And Mike, I don't know. Go ahead. It's your show.
I was going to say, they weaponized the Federal Reserve note at Bretton Woods. And they've used it to basically collect an imperial tax on the rest of the world ever since then.
What about SWIFT? The credibility of SWIFT, they weaponize that, right?
Well, SWIFT is not being run by the United States. I'm sorry. You are right. My mistake. SWIFT is run by the United States. SWIFT is the actual mechanism by which the Federal Reserve note is weaponized.
Exactly. If you don't do business with us, something bad going to happen to you. You know, but when you do that, you lose credibility with that. That's why countries move away from the dollar and our payment system. And then they go to an alternative. They'll trade within themselves, you know. And Mike, I don't know if you talked about this yesterday. HCBC, I forgot the bank, HCBC, but they're laying off 10,000 people.
HSBC, they're laying off a whole bunch of people.
And then I also saw Ford. I don't know if you talked about Ford is like $150 billion, and they got their bonds put to junk. I mean, it's not going good.
Yeah.
You know, no matter
No,
what
it
the
is.
Federal Reserve or the, you know, it's
You can't make an economy work if the ordinary people can't trade their skills and labor for decent wages and salaries. It's just not going to work. When you have all that money piled up, you know, over the money junkies, the system locks up, and that's exactly what's going on.
and be a 70% consumption-based economy, which is the West, basically, right? Like if one year stops in that, the whole system comes to a halt, and I think that's what we're witnessing now. You know, people have too much debt. Yeah. The government's got too much debt. You know, so. But all right, Mike, have a good night. Stay warm.
All right, thanks an awful lot here. I mean, the reason there's too much debt is because the banking system is designed to produce more debt than money with which to pay the debt. And we're heading into some very hard times because we have the, let's see, Ecuador police. Okay, apparently over in Ecuador, they're having protesters. Oh boy, everybody. Okay, UK experiences worst drop in productivity in 5 years as Brexit economic forecasts dim. And it's just really coming apart. And a big part of it, as I mentioned, there are going to be food shortages probably this winter. And it has to do with the fact that we had a very short growing season, that in a lot of cases the ground was so saturated by floods that it wouldn't support the seedlings. We're pretty much at the end of the growing season here. We know that over in China, they've got this pig disease that is just decimating their stocks over there. So, U.S. media says found Joe Biden's son has stake in blacklisted Chinese firm. Boy, this is coming apart real fast. This is coming apart real fast. All right. So who knows? Maybe by New Year we'll have a new country. What can I tell you here? All righty. So getting on back to the news here. Again, the phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And that's another problem with this new Siri, is it keeps talking back to me when I don't want it to talk to me. We are. All right. So, boy, they really messed it up. They really, really did. And apparently Turkey is now saying we will create a peace corridor in northern Syria with or without the United States. This is not going very well. All right, so getting on back to computers, getting on back to the terrible job they've done on iOS 13.1.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. They're probably going to stop numbering them at this point. Turn on automatic updates so you don't know that they're tinkering with your phone. Windows, the rest of it. Boy, do I miss Linux. As you are probably aware, a lot of organizations and entities have gone to what is called multi-factor authentication, which means you will log into a website with your password, and they will then send you back a randomly generated password that you have to enter in so that they know you are the person they think you are. Unfortunately, it turns out that the FBI is warning that already there are ways for the cyber criminals to get past multi-factor authentication. And a lot of it has to do with being able to get in and tinker with the SIM cards. So this has to be nation state. You'd think if these were just ordinary street criminals, I mean, you know, look how often they'll get the people who hold up a 7-Eleven. Okay. But we have all these literally millions of people who are going around the world targeting computers. They never get arrested. They never get thrown in jail. This is a nation state. This is somebody plundering the people. It's just another way of looting the population here. Now, down in Venezuela, where things are still very, very tense, the United States government has worked out an agreement with Adobe. Now, if you're not sure what I'm talking about, Adobe is this company that produces a lot of amazing software like Photoshop and Illustrator, two of the best known. And like so many other companies, they have switched to a subscription-based business model, which means that you pay a regular fee every month to keep using the products rather than make a one-time purchase and own them. Well, apparently later this month, all the Adobe subscriptions in Venezuela will be canceled without refund. Adobe just informed its clients in emails sent this week. And the company said it cannot offer its services in the South American country because in August, President Donald Trump issued an executive order which essentially bans almost all transactions between the two nations. But Adobe's going to keep the money anyway. All right, we're going to take a break for commercials, and I'm going to see what I'm being tweeted at. And we'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And I got to tell you, the information is just coming in so fast right now. During the commercial break, we saw this report on Fox News where the White House has now announced it will not comply with an illegitimate and unconstitutional impeachment inquiry. Well, we know that Trump has been playing this game all along. He wants a vote of impeachment up or down. If they've got something, go for the impeachment. If they don't, leave him alone. And apparently the Democrats are subpoenaing the Pentagon as the probe widens. And let's see. Press TV is reporting that U.S. foreign policy is in a state of total disarray. I would absolutely agree with that. Press TV is also reporting that Iran is ready for talks with Riyadh if it stops killing civilians. Meanwhile, over in Israel, Israel forces have put the occupied West Bank on lockdown. That's nutso today. Just nutso today. All this stuff going on. Well, what Trump wants to do is really very simple. He wants an impeachment vote. There's no such thing in the Constitution as an impeachment inquiry. That's what the Department of Justice does. We're going to see if a crime was committed. And apparently the Democrats are trying to subpoena the Pentagon now as part of this probe widens. All right, phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Let's get back into some more news here. It's a crazy day. I don't remember seeing it being quite this crazy. I mean, Claire is just feeding me all this stuff from her machine. And anyway, all right, so we were talking about computers here. And if you're an old codger like me, you remember the days of HTTP, hypertext markup language. Actually, that's HTML, but basically the same thing. Well, as you are probably aware, in this world of increased web security, they have gone to HTTPS as the standard. Chrome is now going to block all passive HTTP content. It's either HTTPS or you don't use Chrome at all. And I'm rapidly falling out of love with Chrome anyway because of some of its other behavior. A little bit of arrogance over there. Now, let's see. Wow, look at all this stuff coming on in here. Turkey confirms it attacked the Kurdish supply route in Syria overnight. I thought at first they denied that. The White House is blocking the ambassador to the European Union from testifying to the Democrats' impeachment inquiry. And apparently, well, we already got this other stuff here. It's weird here. Yes, I got that. All right, so we talk a lot about geological history here, and one of the things I'm definitely enjoying about being in Indiana is the variety of the geology here. I lived in Hawaii for 23 years, which was lava, and some more lava, and some more lava, and some more lava. And here it's definitely a lot better. And I discovered a big bowl, if you will, of assorted rocks out in the backyard of our domicile. And it took me a while to realize these were mining tailings, because here in Indiana they have a lot of emeralds, and up north you have to mine them, but down here in the south you pan for them. And that's apparently what the previous resident of this place was doing. So I got out the UV lights, and there's definitely a lot of burl. I didn't find any actual crystals, and I like that kind of stuff. And I did make a point of bringing this microscope for the kids to play with here. And so I'm definitely enjoying that. So David over in our control room said that HTTP stands for Hypertext Transport Protocol. How could I have forgotten that one? And we have a caller on the line, Bob in New Jersey. Aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Okay, without a formal vote of impeachment, the Democrats do not have the authority to issue a subpoena. They are merely letters with attachments that look like subpoenas, but they're merely letters. There's no obligation to comply. That's all I have to say. That's true.
No, that's absolutely true. And they have sent out no subpoenas whatsoever. Again, it's up to the Department of Justice to be looking at this stuff. Okay, so anyway.
Yes.
And by the way, for your astronomy, okay, all right, we got to take another break for commercials. We'll be right back.
Have a good day.
Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones here to Matt in Florida. Aloha, Matt. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing? Two things.
Hanging in there.
I think it's a little more. All right. I think it's a little more something to this removal of the troops from Syria. I believe he's setting it up for a large-scale war. He wants to remove our troops out of harm's way before they go ahead with a larger strike on Iran. I really do believe that's what's going on. Didn't we also pull out of
it's a
Qatar?
Possibility. Yeah, it's a possibility. Yeah. Well, definitely pulling out of Qatar was to pull that command and control center out of range of Iran's missiles. Again, how does he sell the necessity for an Iran war to the American people?
That's the tricky part. I believe they're going to have a false flag strike, and it's going to be before we can even say yay or nay, the war is going to begin on that one.
Well, the problem is they've done that false flag. They've done the false flag so many times, nobody's going to fall for it again. You know, we know 9/11 was a false flag, the Lusitania was a false flag, the USS Maine was a false flag, the Gulf of Tonkin was a false flag, and apparently the Pentagon is now insisting the U.S. does not endorse a Turkish operation in Syria. So I don't know what Trump thinks he's trying to do over there, but it's descending into chaos.
Wow. From what I understand, he didn't get any advice from anyone in the Pentagon to withdraw troops from Syria. Is he allowed to make choices of that magnitude on his own?
He's the commander-in-chief. He can, in fact, make that decision entirely on his own.
Wow. Wow. And also, I was reading that North Korea pulled out of talks again. I really believe that they're just using this as a stall tactic, and they have no plan on denuking or any type of peace treaty with us. I believe this is a stall tactic until they can build up their missiles supply to the point where they know they can't be stopped, and they're just going to give us the middle finger and ride off into the sunset.
Well, no, what's going off here is that Kim Jong-un has been looking at all the countries that believed the United States of America when the United States said, if you will surrender your weapons of deterrence, we will take care of you. And of course, it didn't happen. Iraq surrendered their weapons of deterrence. They promptly got attacked. Syria surrendered their weapons of deterrence. They got attacked. Afghanistan surrendered their weapons of deterrence. They got attacked. And now they're trying to pull the same thing with Iran and with North Korea. And it gets back to that issue. Who can possibly trust the United States government at this point?
That's true. I don't believe they're going to ever come around for talks. They pulled this to stall Trump, and they're just going to stall him until he's out of office. I really believe that.
North Korea, Bolton is right about one thing. North Korea will not surrender their nuclear weapons because they don't want to get attacked.
That's true. That is the only thing that's stopping someone from marching in there, taking over, and they're not going to give it up.
You're absolutely right about
their
that.
sovereignty is gone. Well, that's all I have for you, Mike. You guys have a great day.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're getting down to the end of it here. Let's go to David in San Francisco. Aloha, David. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, how are you, Michael? The issue of the Kurds came up, and
yes,
as you might be aware, the Kurds are actually they're kind of an ancient people that have been around for hundreds. I'm not sure if they go back thousands of years, but they're hundreds of years. And you remember how the Turks killed the Armenians about 100 years ago?
Yes.
The Turks were trying to do the same to the Kurds for basically, more recently as well as before the Armenians.
Yes.
So the Kurds they're spread all around. They're up in Syria. They're up in Iran. They're in Turkey. It's not like it's a state. It's more like it's. They're not gypsies. They're not Armenians. I'm not sure what their origins are, but they really cover a wide belt of people, right? And some of the Kurds were being destroyed. ISIS was killing some of the Kurds, and there were some Kurdish who were also mercenaries who were fighting with ISIS. So when this news comes out that Trump is cutting off aid, is Trump cutting off aid from which side? And in my eyes, I think...
Go ahead. Please continue.
Oh, well, it just gets into, when Trump uses kind of nebulous language, he's going to cut off aid he's going to withdraw and let the Kurds, fight it out on their own. It gets into whether or not, in my eyes, it gets into whether or not Trump has got some deal where he gets to keep their land. If they get killed, then there's nobody to, the house will go up for bankruptcy auction, so to speak, and Trump and his cronies will get their land. So that to me is what's suspicious about this. I don't believe that Trump is trying to stop deep state. I think Trump is deep state. And I don't trust him for, when he comes up with a nebulous statement about a people that are so broad, it's like coming up with a slander against Tennessee or something like that, or maybe more like people of the South, or people of California. There's all kinds of people. And so to even believe that, a slander against everybody in the South, or, it's dumb, and it's not professional. We hire a president to be a professional, and he's doing some sloppy work here.
I would agree with you on that one. And I mean, there is a certain aura, if you will, that you expect a president to to do. And yes, he used social media very effectively in his 2016 campaign, but he should have backed off of it now, and he should have been a little bit less snarky about his tweets. And sometimes it seems like he spends more time tweeting than doing much of anything else. But then these days, it almost seems like everybody in Congress, they're spending all their time just spitting venom at each other, which is why the country's being allowed to just, go downhill. Nobody's taking care of the place. There's nobody with their hand on the rudder of the ship of state. And having been a rag setter for most of my life, I'll tell you right now, if you don't have a firm hand on that tiller, your ship goes up on the rocks.
Right? Yeah, it's very dangerous. It's unbelievable that we're just allowing this guy. We pay him, what is it, $400,000 a year, to be president. And I don't know if you're keeping up with what's called Trump golf count, but if he was
plays a lot
paid
of golf. Hey, listen, I'll do the job for $200,000 a year. Such a deal, a discount. There you go.
If he gets to spend $100 million, he's up to $109 million now in just golf, and
yes.
At $500,000 or at $400,000 a year, he'd be paid $1.2 million at this point, and he's already stolen $109 million just on his golf trips. So, what a bargain, for not getting paid.
Technically, those golf trips are all considered business expenses because he takes along people that he negotiates with. So, it's a point of contention. I'm sure a lot of people are out there saying it seems like he's out there just having a lot of fun, and he probably is. But from a purely technical tax point of view, Trump's golf trips are considered business expenses. I really question the need of having to take along the entire Air Force One aircraft for a golf trip down to Florida. But again, that's his prerogative.
Well, the one thing that after Richard Nixon resigned, he went to San Clemente. And he would give these pronouncements, and then he would get death threats. And so when you looked at apparently his retirement is the same amount that you get as president. So at the time, it was $100,000 a year to be president. So his retirement was $100,000 a year, but he was getting $5 million a year in Secret Service coverage. He had to build a whole new wing onto San Clemente. He had to get, all sorts of, he couldn't stay at a fly-by-night hotel. He had to stay at a place where the Secret Service would be covered and finest hotels with all the best security. So I figured out that every time he said something stupid or mean-spirited or evil, he would be able to get more Secret Service protection. And Dick Cheney took that to a new level. In the case of Nixon, it was a 20-to-1 ratio. Dick Cheney had it at something like 43-to-1 ratio. Every time he did something evil, he'd get 43 times more money in Secret Service protection. So I think these guys have just figured out that they can milk the Secret Service budget by saying evil stuff. They get more death threats that way, and that justifies them getting more money.
Yeah, it absolutely does here, and I don't know. I just sort of have this image of Richard Nixon down there on the beach at San Clemente walking along with the Secret Service protective, and he's got a little metal detector, and he's trying to, find some extra bottle caps and stuff about that. But let's see.
Well, it would be more likely is what gets washed up on the shore. You could smuggle stuff up. In the case of him, he was able to get a buffer of the beach that nobody could walk on his beach because of it, and that all of the neighbors who lived on either side of him could barely use the beach because Secret Service were out there with machine guns and just this heavy, intensive pressure. So it's like you think of the opportunity for smuggling if nobody's using the beach.
Well,
and B.B. Rebozo,
Yeah, you've definitely got
Maybe
that.
Rebozo was supposed to be heroin smuggling. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you had George Herbert Walker Bush was smuggling heroin in from Vietnam. You had God, I'm trying to think of the guy's name who blew the whistle on that one. American Nation betrayed Bo Gritz. Bo Gritz.
Oh, right.
We know that. We know CIA was bringing in heroin from Vietnam. They were bringing cocaine from South America. I mean, we have a government of drug lords. And now, of course, they're bringing in all the heroin from Afghanistan. I mean, when Afghanistan was still underneath the control of the Taliban, they caught you with a poppy, they'd cut your hand off. A little draconian, but it did work. And the U.S. goes on in, and the bumper crops are out there, and cheap heroin is flowing into Russia, which is not making them like us very much. And now we have the opioid crisis here in the United States, along with, again, the street dealers. They've got a cheap supply now. And it's an even worse situation than we had under Prohibition.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Well, that was my shot for the day. This whole thing about the Kurds, I don't trust him. There's so much smuggling of heroin. The Kurds are a wide-ranging people. Some of them were very much involved in the heroin smuggling, and some of them are just nice people. So, just blanket statements about Kurds, with a name like Kurds, you can't bet that they're going to have a whole lot of, sweet poppies or, sweet flowers and valentines or something like that. So it makes it easier to steal their land in the name of foreign policy.
Don't forget, they're also sitting astride those smuggler routes that was being used to smuggle the oil out of Syria up to Turkey. They're sitting on that traffic line as well.
Yeah, at $10 a barrel, when the spot price in the world was $110 a barrel, they were smuggling it through there at $10 a barrel, and and then charging us full price for it. Yeah, Switzerland, amazing stuff.
And
we'll appreciate it.
Erdogan and his family just made a huge fortune off of all of this.
Yeah, they're dirty as can be. That's right. They were doing spot prices of oil. In fact, I think, was it Erdogan's son that was involved with the Swiss oil brokers?
Yes, you are right.
So they old money involved in this whole thing. That's why. Did you ever look at the Genie Oil Gas website where it showed the various people in their strategic advisory board? That it was both sides of the aisle. Yeah, it was Woolsey of the CIA. It was Bill Richardson of Clinton's system, but it was Rupert Murdoch. It was Dick Cheney. It was I'm trying to think of the Treasury Secretary under Bill Clinton was Rubin, I believe. And you go to genieoilgas.com and look for their strategic advisory group. And if you do it right, you can see how the strategic advisory group changed over the years. But when you start mixing Rupert Murdoch, Woolsey of the CIA, Dick Cheney, in Genie Oil Gas is the company that had the fracking for the Golan Heights, and they wanted to run that pipeline straight across Syria. And the very counties that they wanted to run the pipeline is where ISIS showed up. And so
isn't that an amazing coincidence there?
Yeah, it's just like a private army, and then the U.S. goes to wipe out ISIS and ends up bombing the hell out of the wrong places in Syria, and leaving ISIS totally protected. There are so many photographs of U.S. weapons in the hands of ISIS people. I remember they were using.
They're not even trying to hide it. They're not even trying to hide it.
Right. There's this. They were famous for using white pickup trucks. They were Toyota white pickup trucks,
and
they had
I
a
remember
23 millimeter.
Picture.
Yeah, they had a mounted machine gun on the back of all of them, 23 millimeter.
All of them brand new.
They had this
showroom new.
Yeah. Toyota never knew how in the heck did they get so many of them, right? And it was and there's this video of I think it runs 12 minutes, and it's by the side of an interstate highway, and you see these things flying by, all mounted with cannon, and then following them all up is a U.S. helicopter guarding them.
Okay, I got to let you go here. We got to take a break for commercial. Back with the last segment of our show after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Hour number 3. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And it's kind of interesting looking at some of the stuff that's going on here. And again, I don't know what Trump thinks he's doing, but I know he's messing it up. Anyway, getting on back to the science story stuff here. This is one I actually wanted to share for a while. And it turns out you're probably already familiar with the Chicxulub asteroid. That's the one that came crashing down about 65 million years ago and wiped out the dinosaurs. But it turns out they have discovered evidence of an asteroid impact just 12,800 years ago that led to an ice age, wiped out dozens of species, and unfortunately decimated the humans. Now, this would actually work out because DNA studies have shown that at one point about that time, the entire population of the human race dropped to just about 8,000 people, and nobody really knew why. A lot of people thought it might have been the Toba supervolcano. But apparently, a team of scientists have discovered signs of what's called a platinum spike at a site called Wonder Crater in the Limpopo province, north of Pretoria in South Africa. And I'm going to have to mark that one on my little Google Earth, because I have a separate file of astroblems, and they keep finding new ones. It's just the way it is here. So meteorites that are rich in platinum and the Wonder Crater site adds to almost 30 other platinum spikes found worldwide, mostly in the northern hemisphere. Boy, wouldn't you like to have one of those on your land here? And basically, the scientists are saying these platinum spikes across the globe support the theory that a large asteroid sent plumes of dust into the air, blocking out the sun and plunging the Earth into a mini ice age. These kind of bad things do actually happen here. All right, I'm getting a little frustrated with NASA. And as you know, NASA stands for Never a Straight Answer. And it goes all the way back to 1976 when Dr. Gilbert Levin's labeled release experiment showed a positive result for life. And ever since then, especially during the Curiosity mission, we've had maybe, could be, might be, not sure. And of course, last week we had that story where the director, one of the directors of NASA came on out and said, well, look, even if we found life on Mars, we're not sure we're going to tell you. We don't think you could handle it. All right, we're going to take a break here for station identification. We'll be back here for hour number 3. Join us on the air, 800-313-9443. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And we're talking about this article that came on out from Russia Today, Signs of Life. NASA's Curiosity rover discovers ancient oasis on Mars 3.5 billion years in the making. And what they're talking about basically is the Gale crater, which was the target of Curiosity rover. And now that they've actually reached the Gale crater, they have discovered it was once dotted with small salty lakes and ponds 3.5 billion years ago. They've also photographed what appear to be the fossilized remains of microbial mats. And Dr. Levin is of the opinion that these so-called blueberries, that are found all over Mars are actually the remains of bacterial colonies. But nobody wants to commit. And for some reason, for all the rovers that have been set up there, and yes, Mars is a very rough environment. About half the spacecraft sent up there don't make it, although India, they've had an orbiter around Mars for 5 years now. Kind of makes up for that little goof at the moon the other day. Okay, so stop sending these indirect experiments. Send a microscope. Okay? One of the most frustrating things for me, Curiosity was running by this sort of little ravine area. There was a hole, and sticking out of this hole was something that looked like a dead tree root. And the question I've had all the time is, why didn't they turn around, go back, and take another look at it and see what it was that they were looking at? I think the photo, it's actually called the crab, the Martian crab, and you can look it up online. But I think that article that came out last week really says it all. The government is concerned that if we are in fact told that there's life on other planets, we might actually decide that we're more interested in going on out and seeing what's out there than we are with killing each other. And that, of course, would be a huge loss for the military-industrial complex. We, get those people back in here, give them guns, let them shoot each other. This idea of exploring the universe, to boldly go where no one has gone before. And again, a lot of us who worked on the original Viking missions back in 1976, boy, was that a long time ago, we were convinced we found indigenous life. And there's no reason to think that life has gone extinct on Mars when you look at the extremophiles that we have here on Earth. And we're talking about microbes that live very deep in the ocean on very high temperature water. You're talking about fish that live in the Arctic, survive in freezing water. This Earth was not made to keep us comfortable. We are comfortable here on the surface of planet Earth because this is where we evolved. Other life forms that evolve other places are going to be very comfortable there. Probably not very happy here. Everyone's always talking about spacecraft coming on down and landing and aliens coming on out. And somebody tell me why space aliens are always totally naked. I know it's because budget. When Close Encounters of the Third Kind, they didn't want to spend the money on the outfits there. But the fact of the matter is that probably an alien from another world would find our world to be very toxic, very deadly, just like we would in turn find theirs. They'd have to wear environmental suits the way our Apollo astronauts had to wear them on the moon. And this is one of the areas in which I disagreed with Stephen Hawking when he was out there saying, we've got to be very careful. We can't send radio waves out there. We can invite these people on down there, to planet Earth. Really? Why would they show up? What do we have that makes coming here worthwhile? All right, we got a caller on the line. Robert in California. Aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Mike, God forbid us explore space instead of killing each other. That ain't right. A tourist might see us. We can't have that.
Well, I got it. Given a choice, I'd rather be out there exploring space than killing people. Of course, at my age, I'm not much of an explorer anymore. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's what we should be doing. It's what we're made to do. I mean, if you think about the history of humankind before we got into the period of the Great Wars, when you're talking about period, like Magellan or Captain Cook or Christopher Columbus. Yes, it is our nature to go on out and explore. The problem was we ran out of room on this planet, so instead of exploring more of the planet, we just shoot each other over the portions that we want.
Yeah, no, you got a good point. Hey, wasn't Captain Cook eaten by the locals, though?
Yes, he
I'm
was.
just saying. I mean, that's aside from my point today.
Yeah, no.
No, when it comes down to the idea of us exploring space versus killing each other, I would certainly, prefer we explore space. But, then you have the politic. You have everything that's going on lately. And, I'm sure, Mike, you understand what's going on just as well as I do. We're both looking at the same news. And this is all happening with or without us. That's what really sucks so much. I mean, they're going to be up there doing this whether we're paying attention or not. Kind of sucks.
All righty. Let me send a message here to my wife and get back to doing the radio show. Okay, so here we are. Now, the story of Captain Cook is rather interesting because when he first arrived in Hawaii, he was in, your basic square set sailing ship, which was the mast and the yard arms and the sails. And it just by coincidence happened to match the icon for the god Lono. And Cook showed up at a time when there was a festival for Lono. So they welcomed him aboard, welcomed him on shore, and they just showed him a really good time. And it should have ended positively at that point, but Cook sailed away, got into a storm, suffered damage, and came on back. And that was seen as inauspicious because it was the wrong time of year for him to be there. And so one of the Hawaiians basically hit Cook, saw that he bled, which meant he was not a god, but a human. And so, yes, they did eat him, which was more a case of acquiring his mana, his magic, than of needing the nutrition. But that's basically how that story all came about.
Yep.
Is anybody there?
I guess I'm still here. Yeah, no,
you're still there.
Okay, no, I was just so encaptured by what you had to say, I really didn't have any response. Yeah, no, when it comes down to the politics of our planet, we've been going through the same big circle for a long, long time. And I don't understand how people don't there's all these people out here, all these millennials and what have you, and they don't take the time to register how important our history is and why if we don't understand it, we're going to be forced to repeat it. I don't get it.
Yes.
I just don't get it.
We're taught history as a series of disconnected events. 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. And we walk out of the history class thinking that we've learned history because we've got a name, we've got a date, and we've got an event. But that's not how history works. History is this continuously moving, if you will, dance, this intertwining of cause and effect. And they don't want us aware of the cause and effect in history, because then we might become aware of the cause and effect of what's happening right in front of us right now. They want us to think about current events.
You really pegged that.
History. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you pegged that. I mean, if I were going to get some kind of award for having a couple of limericks about history and a couple of rhymes or two, man, we're all in trouble. If that's what's going to get me an A in history, we're in trouble, bro.
Yeah, we are. And let's be honest, a lot of history is a flat-out lie. History is a joke played by the victors on the vanquished in front of an audience too scared to laugh.
God, isn't that great? Who quoted that? Who was that? Who said that?
Me, actually.
Really? Dude, that's a good one. Do you mind if I write that down? I'm going to keep that one.
Okay, you can go ahead and write it down, and I know it's in the master quote file at the website.
Am I allowed to share it on YouTube? I have some videos that I put up from time to time.
Anywhere that you want. It's in the public
that's a
domain.
Really good quote. That's a really good quote. I think that more people really need to really understand and register that one. I think that's a good one. So anyway, I'm going to let you go, Mike. I really appreciate your time. I'm glad you guys got moved into your new place, mostly for now.
Mostly.
I encourage you to enjoy the mainland.
Well, again, we've got most of the furniture where it's supposed to go. Claire's office is together, mine's coming together, and we're kind of at the point right now where we're just fiddling over decor, where things are going to go. So anyway, Robert, thank you very much. We're going to let you go here. The phone lines are open for anybody who would like to call on in and share some more time with us here before the end of the program. All right, this is a story that's very, very alarming, and I'm seeing more and more of them, and it's just, well, it's annoying me. This story came out of naturalnews.com, and I know that naturalnews.com has come under attack as being a source of false news because it's telling you things you shouldn't be thinking about for medicine. But again, how do you know? We have been lied to so much by corporations and corporate media and government. How do we know who we can possibly trust? So apparently, according to this story, there's been this research out of Italy has uncovered shocking new details about the aborted human fetal cell lines that are used in today's childhood vaccines. So this is a report by the Children's Health Defense, a group known as Corvelva, discovered the original MPC5 aborted baby cell line from which vaccines are still made today is derived from the entire human genome of an aborted male baby with abnormal genes. Abnormal genes. Get that abnormal. As it turns out, some of these 560 abnormal genes have been linked to cancer. It's one thing when you talk about maybe there's a gene that's linked to cancer in a vaccine. We're talking 560. And that basically means that a person's cancer risk increases every time he or she is injected with yet another vaccine that contains this tainted MRC5 aborted baby cell line. And this cell line is still being used in vaccines like the MMRV, which is manufactured by GlaxoSmithKline, all heard before, as well as Twinrix, Proquad, and Verivax. Keep getting back to this question, and we know that individual doctors mean well. They've gone to medical school. They want to make people healthy. But what about the pharmaceutical companies? Remember, we had this article that came on out. It was about, I think, in fact, it was last week, basically saying that the CEOs of the big pharmaceutical companies, they're not interested in the health of the patients. They feel that their primary responsibility is to their stockholders, that they're there to basically make the money. And see, I'm old school. I think you should make a good product at a good price and you make your money that way. We're seeing in too many cases where there's planned obsolescence. There goes Lucy, our mascot. There's planned obsolescence. There's stuff that's built to fail very, very quickly. And now we have to ask a reasonable question. Are, in fact, some of the medications that we are being sold intending to keep us ill? Because even Goldman Sachs came on out and said, curing patients is a bad business model. That you basically, you want to treat them. You want to treat them continuously. That is how you make your money. All right, getting on back to some of the political stuff we've been talking about. Apparently, Nancy Pelosi's entire family has generational corruption. She's tied to 4 families that have run California for 80 years, like the Game of Thrones, which was a show that I really did like. And by the way, I saw an article come out the other day where the show's original creator came on out and basically was saying that the way they ended the show was not what he'd originally intended. And I actually got a sense of that when they stabbed what's her name, Stormborn. So that doesn't make sense. It's a very unsatisfying ending here. Okay, let's see. Story coming on out. Opposite of what climate experts told us, global snow. Extended ski season for a third year in a row in Australia. Unusual heavy snows in China, India, Finland, Norway, with a revisit of MS Malmo stuck in the early sea ice at the end of summer. And it's the complete opposite of what these climate experts were saying was going to happen. Because they're there to push the agenda. They're there to push human-caused global warming. You've got to give us money. You've got to give us your obedience, or the world will fry. Anyway, we've reported on this before, but it's worth mentioning again. Hillary Clinton's emails reveal that NATO killed Muammar Gaddafi to stop the Libyan creation of a gold-backed currency. Remember they came out with the gold dinar? Gaddafi did two things that really angered the United States of America. The first one was he shut down the private central bank and he opened a state bank. He opened that state bank with a value-based currency, a gold-backed currency, and then he went out to the rest of the world and said, if you want to buy Libya's oil, you will pay for it in this gold-backed currency. And that, of course, was a major, major threat to the United States dollar. And that's why Gaddafi got killed, and Hillary's emails confirm that. All righty, Turkey fires the first shots. Ankara bombs Kurdish supply route ahead of invasion to create a peace corridor along the border just hours after Trump pulls the U.S. troops. As the president reveals, he's invited Erdogan to the White House next month here. I'm not sure I am buying that there is a peace corridor. And you're dropping bombs, you don't make peace and you don't make a corridor. I think this is really, really going to get out of control here. All righty. Apparently, new info has revealed Biden's massive role in 2016 election interference. So it looks like they're going to get him out of the 2020 here. Donald Trump has vented his fury at the radical left mayor of Minneapolis as the city-owned venue for his planned anti-Ilhan Omar rally orders the campaign to pay a $500,000 security cost or be canceled. All right, we're going to take a break here for commercials. We'll be back here right after these few words. Join us on the air, 800-313-9443. Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Dustin in New Jersey. Aloha, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I'm not going to try to curse, but I hope you have that 3-second delay, the FCC. I got to respond to that caller about the Pentagon. Pentagon is a corrupt institution also, like the FBI.
Yes.
Nobody's going to change the Pentagon. It doesn't even want to be audited. So if you don't like Trump and you go along with the Pentagon, what's that say about you? It says you're not too bright. Now, the Pentagon is not any moral authority, okay? They have a bureaucracy in there, and bureaucracies are all corrupt.
And it's all about the money.
And you know, Mike, I'm thinking like toward the end of the show, I'm thinking we're all talking about Hillary Clinton's. She's in third place. I wonder if any of you listeners know any of the names of those people who fell out of the buildings on 9/11.
Yeah,
anybody
really?
know any of the? No, I mean, you know, anybody who watched what happened on that day, to realize your government armed these people, and they still arm these people after 9/11. That tells you all you need to know about your government and what's going on. You know, and the white van that got pulled over on George Washington, you know, going to the Holland Tunnel, and all that. I mean, this is what your government is. So they're not Mother Teresa. They're not,
they're
Moses
not.
that parted the Red Sea.
We're the most lied to people on the face of planet Earth. It's even worse than the old Soviet Union.
That's all I want to leave people with. Just look at the names. If anybody even knows one name of somebody who even died on 9/11, because it's every year it's a token gesture of just this ringing of the bell, and it's just a showpiece, to push the propaganda. That's
to
it,
reinforce
Mike.
the official story.
Mike.
All right, thanks an awful lot here. We're going to let you go. Phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Now, I love the smell of burning hypocrite in the morning. Joe Biden just released a new ad on Character Matters right after he and Hunter Biden got caught in a $1.5 billion pay-for-play scam. So, again, is this the best that we can do? Is this the best that we can do? All right, Tom Poole and Ocasio-Cortez, they have a new bill they're putting together granting full welfare benefits to all illegal immigrants. This is a direct challenge to Trump's new rules, where Donald Trump is out there saying, look, you can't just walk across our border without permission and go on welfare. And Tim Poole and Ocasio-Cortez say, well, yes, you can. You have a right to come to the United States and get free stuff. They get better treatment than we do here. Okay, CBS has announced a new miniseries based on Comey's anti-Trump book, A Higher Loyalty. I'm going to predict right now that's a turkey. I certainly am not going to be looking at that here. Apparently, new evidence has surfaced confirming that Hillary Clinton knew she was using a non-government email system for government business. How could she not know? I mean, let's get serious here. How could she not know? Wild swings in repo rates raise concerns about the bond market liquidity. And by the way, the Dow ended like 300 down today. California becomes the first state to allow HIV prevention pills without a prescription, which I guess is a good thing here. Mike Maloney and Jeff Clark, the world's biggest gold investors, are on a buying spree. And silver at 170 is a no-brainer. Gerald Celente is out there saying the Greatest Depression will be worse than the Great Depression. And I'm in agreement with him on that. We're going to look back on what happened in the 1930s and say it was the not-so-great Depression. Because we're heading toward this debt crisis. Everybody is in debt, and there's no way to make the money to pay the debt off because of the way the banking system is set up. They create the money out of thin air, they loan it into circulation at interest, and the debt piles up and piles up, piles up and piles up. Okay, apparently there's been an ugly situation over in Great Britain where the wife of a U.S. diplomat who had a previous auto accident struck and killed a pedestrian and then immediately fled the country. Great Britain is demanding her return, and I think that would be a good thing to do. We got to take another break here for commercials, and we will be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, and we're going to finish up this show with some kind of bizarre stories that are out there. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm wondering what's gone wrong with our civilization where we behave this way. And I saw this on Fox News earlier today. It has to do with a gentleman, 79-year-old guy named Samuel Little. He's already serving 3 consecutive life sentences in California, and apparently all of a sudden decided one day he was going to confess to 93 murders during a 35-year span. So the FBI is now saying this is the worst serial killer in U.S. history. So the FBI's Violent Criminal Apprehension Program, known as VICAP, began connecting Little to unsolved murders after a Texas Ranger tied the inmate to a 1994 cold case in the city of Odessa. And Little confessed to eventually strangling 93 young women across the country. Okay, why? I mean, what's wrong with this guy that he thinks this is acceptable? He apparently didn't know these women. It's not like he married these 93 women, got into a bad marriage and decided to kill them. I mean, there's another story that was here where this guy literally threw his mother off a balcony. She had Alzheimer's, and they let him go because he said this was his act of love. It's kind of bizarre out here. Okay, 3 teens have been arrested in Phoenix for allegedly shooting a photographer 9 times after asking him to take their photo. And it was the photos the victim took that led police straight to the suspects. Well, there's some good thinking for you. So ABC 15 reports that the unnamed 33-year-old victim had visited Encanto Park with his camera and tripod at around 9 p.m. on Thursday, September 12th. He had decided to shoot photos in the park after noticing it has a lake. So these 3 teenagers then approached the man, asked him to take their photo, and after initially stating that he charges $20 for photos, which is very reasonable, the photographer agreed to shoot a portrait for free. But after shooting the portraits and while live streaming his evening on Facebook Live, the photographer heard the teens use a racial slur when speaking to him. And the photographer said, "My man, you can't say the N-word. You're not black." And when the teens continued to use the slur, the photographer again asked him to stop, and that's when 2 of the suspects pulled out guns and shot the victim 9 times. The whole attack was captured on the photographer's live stream and later broadcast on the news as well. Okay, again, what's wrong with this picture here? First of all, that they used an inappropriate racial slur and that they just shot the guy. Something has gone horribly, horribly wrong with our culture. When I was a kid, yes, we'd had World War II and we had Korea, but outside of that, you didn't shoot and kill people, just for taking pictures. There's something gone wrong. Is it the prescription psychiatric medication? There's something definitely not right about the way our culture is working right now. Okay, another story here. This is coming out of madnesshub.com, and this will not surprise anybody, but an audio recording obtained by the conservative radio and television network The Blaze appears to show a top Ukrainian official admitting to trying to damage Donald Trump's campaign in a bid to help Hillary Clinton. Now, you recall back in August 2016, then Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort resigned his post following revelation of his past lobbying work for pro-Russian Ukrainian oligarchs. And what did we get following the 2016 election? Russiagate, Russiagate, Russiagate. Russia was helping Donald Trump defeat Hillary Clinton. No, that's not what happened. It went the other way. And we see that from the Democrats all the time, where they will commit these crimes, they'll commit these indiscretions, and the first thing they do is say no, they did it over there. They did, we're the good people over here. They did it over there. And it's just lie after lie after lie after lie after lie. Okay, Bill O'Reilly is out with a video saying that Trump told me privately about his plans to expose the deep state. Gorka is out there saying the house of cards is about to fall for the Obama administration. This dovetails with that suggestion that the Marines may be mobilized to conduct mass arrests. I would love to see it happen. I don't think it's going to happen, but I would love to see it happen here. All right, over in China, state media in Tencent suspend broadcast of the NBC preseason games in China. Apparently there's been some kind of a contract dispute or something. And apparently, we already talked about that one here. Trump is out there still justifying his pulling people out of Syria. He said, we were to be in Syria for 30 days. It's time to get out of these ridiculous, endless wars. And it sounds good, and he did campaign on that. And I still honestly don't know what he's trying to do. But I think it's coming apart. I don't think it's working quite the way he wants to see it work. Okay. All righty. We talked about Comey's new book here, the HIV prevention pills. Man, this idea of these three kids just blowing away. Photographer. Oh, you have to wonder what's. Our civilization is dissolving. It really, really is here. Okay, more than a quarter of Democratic college students support banning MAGA hats on campus. So that basically means more than a quarter of Democratic college students are opposed to the First Amendment to the Constitution, to the Bill of Rights, which says we all have an equal right to our opinion. Apparently, Vans is facing a boycott for pulling a shoe design supportive of the Hong Kong protests in the name of tolerance. Let's see. NFL player says league fined him for Man of God headband. Asks Instagram followers if he should keep wearing it. Yes, keep wearing it. It's your choice. We seem to have reached this stage where everywhere we go, everything we say, everything that we do, we need everybody else's permission for? I don't think so. Because it's not working. I mean, that incident with the three teenagers shooting the photographer, I'm sure that photographer didn't give them permission to shoot him, but they did anyway. So, you want to wear that headband? Wear that headband. You want to wear that MAGA hat? You wear that MAGA hat. Okay, this one's a little bit out there. There's a new study saying tanning salons could be targeting gay men and giving them cancer. Now, I'm not entirely sure exactly how that would work, unless maybe, okay, well, they're basically saying that they're more targeted in neighborhoods with high numbers of male gay couples. I mean, that's silly. Why would you do that? And let me send a message back to the lady. Okay, basically the message that Claire sent to me was, can the U.S. Block funds to Hezbollah? And the response is yes, to a degree, because Hezbollah gets funds from Lebanon as well and other places. Alrighty. Apparently, over in Australia, they've had, well, they basically canceled a conference speech And apparently it was a whistleblower and an academic have said pressure from the Australian government's top cybersecurity agency led to their speeches being cancelled at a conference in Melbourne. And yes, this definitely does happen, and not just in Australia, here in the United States. You can't talk about codes and encryption without the prior permission of the United States government. Alrighty. I'm seeing all these stories about Ellen DeGeneres and how she's trying to defend herself from the social media firestorm. And this gets back to what I was saying. We're living our lives too much, letting other people tell us how to live them. We've got to stop doing that. We've got to stop doing it. We've got to start saying, you know, I am who I am, and I'm going to wear the clothes that I want to wear, and I'm going to do the things that I want to do as long as they're not criminal activity. I'm going to wear whatever hat I want to wear. And, okay, Ron Paul is out there saying the Fed's latest bailouts, more proof bad times are ahead. Ron Paul would definitely know about that. But we got to stop doing it. We have to stop allowing our lives to be controlled by the mob, by the throng. We have to become independent spirits again. Okay. Apparently SoftBank damaged after WeWork implosion. Losses could exceed $5 billion. Boy, have they had a bad time over there. We already talked about Elizabeth Warren being undermined on her claim that she was fired for being pregnant here. About SDF. This is really a mess. This is really, really a mess out there. All right, so where are we on the clock anyway? And we've got about, we have about 15 minutes here. So let's see if anybody's waiting on the phone line. Nope, not quite yet, but we could use some phone calls to finish the show out with. And now the Senate is out there saying Kremlin directed trolls who supported Trump in 2016. It's just one lie after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other. All righty. Article coming out of Investment Watch blog. The book is about to close on the late, great United States of America. I definitely agree. I can't see this place holding together much longer, not when people are behaving this way. And, okay, now the House of Representatives is saying that Trump could be impeached for lying to the public. I mean, I am sorry, but if you impeached every politician who lied to the public, that building would be empty. They are grasping at straws here. Yeah, I saw that. I mean, it's amazing, amazing, amazing. Okay, Trump's approval rating has surged to 36% among blacks. And that's a good thing. Attorney General Bill Barr and John Durham met with Italy's spy chief twice, demanding proof of former PM Renzi's involvement in Obama's Spygate scandal. This thing is spreading all the way across the globe. Now, this one is significant. A new poll finds Trump is gaining more support from independent voters than Democratic challengers. And we talked about this last week, where the Democrats have gone so far left, they're alienating, they're alienating independent voters more than they're attracting hard left voters. Apparently Rush Limbaugh had an audio of James Clapper admitting Obama made them spy on Trump. That would be a really, really good thing. Oh. GOP Senator rips into Chuck Todd's very biased open. Fight ensues. And we already talked about Lindsey Graham is outraged that we're leaving Syria here. Okay, U.S. military updates. Well, we talked about that yesterday, and we still are not exactly sure what that one means, if there is, in fact, something getting ready to happen, or if, in point of fact, it's just a change of procedure. Okay, we have a couple of callers on the line. Henri in Connecticut, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, it's Henry from Connecticut. Henry.
Okay.
Hello,
It was,
can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you. It was mistyped, and I misspoke it. My apologies.
Oh, that's okay. All right. Oh, that's okay. That's not a problem. I'm going to move on. I called about the photographer stuff, what you just mentioned.
Yeah.
What state was this and what town was this, first of all?
Phoenix.
Give me the state and town.
I think it was Phoenix. Yeah.
Arizona. Oh, that's right, Arizona, where Brittany Macklin is. You see B.B. Jones. Okay. All right, that's in Phoenix. Oh, that's surprising. Okay. What I heard you say is that, oh, you got the music coming, a commercial?
Yeah, we got to do a commercial break here, and I got one more caller waiting on the line.
I'll hold.
All right, hold. I'll come right back to you. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Last segment of our program today. Here we're talking with Henry in Connecticut about this absolutely senseless tragedy that took place in Phoenix, Arizona, where there's a photographer. He's got his camera. He's got his tripod. It's at night. He's going to take some artistic photos of this lake. And all of a sudden, these three teenagers come on up. They ask him for a photograph, and they just haul off and shoot the guy 9 times. And to me, it just doesn't make any sense at all.
9 times.
Yes.
To me, it just makes any sense at all.
We're getting to what you said, though, that they use the racial epithet. It's a racial epithet that's used rap and the hip hop and all of that. I take it that these are black, not white teenagers, right? And they were using the N word.
Well, the problem here is that the photographer said you can't use the N-word because you're not black. And apparently that's a thing with the black community, that if they are black, they can go ahead and use it. And but I mean, to haul out a gun and shoot this guy, I mean, 9 times.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they got him. I'm glad they were stupid enough to leave behind the photos and the videos. Anyway, listen, Henry, we're going to let you go. We're almost out of time, and I'm going to take a quick call from Jim in New York. Aloha, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I had Tom from Florida mention me a couple times. Tom, if you're listening, I didn't mean to get you further riled up. I was just making a technical point. But I think the alt-right types, the Alex Jones types, they obsess over Muslims, and I think that's inadvertently advocating the war agenda. But I just was disagreeing with Tom on a technical point. Tom, you're one of my top 3 callers of your show. I've been listening to you. Look forward to hearing Tom for years. And in fact, I'm against all immigration. Remember when Pat Buchanan ran in '96?
Yeah.
He wanted a moratorium on all immigration, including legal immigration.
Well, I disagree with that, because there are people who can come to this country who will be a benefit, and my own father was one of them. He was from Shanghai, China, and he was accepted as a student at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And that obviously that's somebody we want in this country.
Yes, but until Americans are more fully employed, American-born, I agree with restricting immigration. But my point is,
Yeah, but you know, not every born American can qualify for MIT or Caltech.
Yeah. But Tom, keep calling. I love your calls. I look forward to them. And have a great show, Mike.
Thanks an awful lot. There's the music. It's time for me to get on out of here and get back to unpacking. Stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. And please spread the word for RBN. Spread the word for whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. We need your help here. We'll be back tomorrow. And aloha, America.